All right, we are live. It is Tuesday, February 28th, and this is another episode of Ask a Clutter Boss, the internet's favorite weekly decluttering advice show. If you are here live, please say hello in the comments. If you're joining on replay, give us a hashtag replay. And if you struggle with memorabilia, this is the episode for you. We are talking all things memorabilia right now. And maybe bookmark this one, save this one, come back to this one if you're not doing memorabilia right now, because it's going to be a pretty powerful Ask a Clutter Boss episode. We always get questions about memorabilia, and these are my most powerful thoughts about tackling memorabilia while you're decluttering. When we talk about memorabilia, let's just go ahead and define that. What are we talking about? Memorabilia, when it comes to in the context of clutter, is anything that has an emotional charge to it. So, one of my number one tips with tackling memorabilia is to actually recognize memorabilia when you come across it. Memorabilia could be in any form. It could be paper. A lot of memorabilia is paper. It could be an object, an artifact. It could be a sock. It could be food. It could be anything. And one of the problems with memorabilia, so it's anything that's emotionally charged, which means when you look at it, when you pick it up, it brings back a memory, it brings up an emotional thought. It's just got emotion attached to it. And because it could be anything, oftentimes it's hiding amongst other clutter that would be easier to tackle if the memorabilia was not there. When we look at a stack of paper, we may know that there is something emotionally charged in that stack of paper. It could be anything from a legal document, a medical document, a child's drawing. It could be anything. And when we see that stack of paper, number one, paper is difficult because there's so much of it, but it's harder to go through that paper because we get stuck on the memorabilia. We flip to it and then we remember something we have to do. We remember a time, a place. Maybe it's happy, maybe it's not happy, but it kind of stops us in our tracks. So, number one, when you are decluttering, what you want to do is create a safe space for your memorabilia. That means if you're going through a stack of paper and you come across legal documentation that is very emotionally charged, you are going to know what to do with that immediately. And all you're going to do is pick it up and put it into the safe spot, like the one drop zone for memorabilia. Have a box, have a bin, have a closet, whatever it is, where when you are decluttering the rest of your non emotionally charged stuff, you know what to do with the memorabilia. You don't need to deal with it right now, but you do need to separate it out because it is its own category. And even though it is a paper, it's an emotionally charged sheet of paper, which makes it memorabilia. So you pull it out, you put it with memorabilia. Anything can be memorabilia, but learning to recognize it and having a plan of action. When I come across my memorabilia, I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to put it over here. That way, all of your emotionally charged items, your sentimental memorabilia, is all in one spot. And you can decide when you want to deal with that. I always recommend that we deal with memorabilia not first. It doesn't necessarily have to be last, but definitely not first. You want to make sure that you're ready for any emotion that it elicits when you go through your memorabilia. So that means maybe you need to give it a little bit of time, have some therapy, talk to a friend, whatever, before you tackle that memorabilia, but you're making the decision about when you go through it. You're not just coming upon it and having to deal with it unexpectedly as you're decluttering, because you've already done that, right? You've already decluttered big sections of your house. You've come upon it. You've said, oh, this is memorabilia. I'm not going to go down the emotional rabbit hole right now. I'm just going to pick this up and put it with the rest of my memorabilia. And I'm going to tackle that when I know that I am ready to do that. So you're taking back the control, which is huge, because the thing side note here, when it comes to clutter, a lot of times we use clutter as a control mechanism. So, and this is just cold hard truth. This is what many clients have shared with me. If it resonates with you, go ahead, run with it. If it doesn't resonate with you, pass it over and listen to the rest of this. A lot of times we use our clutter as a control mechanism. We maybe are building walls around ourselves with clutter. We are testing people to see if they will love us, even if we have all of this clutter. We just use clutter to control our interactions. This is something that happens pretty frequently. It's fairly common. It's not a big deal if you do this, but what happens is that eventually the clutter builds up so much that even though we were using it to control certain situations, all of the sudden it is controlling us. We're so overwhelmed by it, we don't know what to do. We lose control to clutter over and over again. So it's really important that we have a system in place where we're taking back that control. And I'm not saying if you're, building walls around you that you are a hoarder or anything like that. You're just an awesome human that has had to use these coping mechanisms over time, and that's okay. We're growing as people and we're learning different ways to handle things, and decluttering is a big part of that journey. Know how to identify memorabilia and have a safe spot to drop it when you come across it. That's really, really important. And also, don't tackle your memorabilia when you start decluttering, because decluttering is a muscle that needs to be strengthened, and memorabilia, it needs a lot of strong decluttering muscle before you get to it. So know that you can put it aside and come back to it later, and that is okay. When we're decluttering, we don't have to deal with every single thing. We have to find the easy stuff and deal with that first. That's the process. My next comment and thought around memorabilia that I hope is helpful is to challenge these all encompassing identities that we have, especially when it comes to memorabilia. I'm a super sentimental person. I'm emotionally attached to everything. I'm someone who loves collecting. It's great to have these identities, but they don't have to be the be all end all of who we are. So if you are somebody who is very sentimental, that doesn't mean you're sentimental with every single thing. You're not sentimental with 100% of everything that you own. It may feel like you are compared to somebody else, but you're not. So challenge these identities where it's like really all in. I'm all in. I'm so sentimental. All of this is memorabilia. It's not. I have worked with thousands and thousands and thousands of clients. There is something amongst a lot of sentimental items that you can declutter, that you can figure out that you are not super emotionally attached to. Find that thing, and maybe don't talk about yourself as so all or nothing, because when you have this identity, like this is me, this is who I am, it puts you into that mindset where you're never going to change, right? That I forget, there's the growth mindset and the other mindset. Well, we need to be in the growth mindset. We are always able to change. And maybe right now you are super sentimental, but that's right now. That's not forever. So just putting those words right now onto the end of any sentence can be really helpful. I'm very sentimental right now, right? But in the future, I may become somebody who can let go of things that feel very emotional to me at the moment. Don't pigeonhole yourself into an identity that is forcing you to keep everything. I love to collect everything. Challenge that a little bit. Do you love to collect everything? Probably not. Just really try. Oh, yes. Thank you, Denise. A growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. That's a very fixed mindset. This is me. This is who I am, period. I'm never going to change. If you know somebody who is like that, it probably feels frustrating. So make sure that you are not that person who is so set in who you are that you're not open to changing, because when you're decluttering, there's a lot of change that comes with it, and it's a beautiful growth, and it is so incredible to see. And if you can get into a point like with your mindset where you're excited for the growth, even though it's going to be challenging, that's going to help you so much. So maybe you are somebody who's very sentimental right now, but maybe over time you can grow to be a person who is still sentimental, but also is able to let go of things as needed. There's another school of thought around memorabilia that I also want to challenge here. We tend to assume or believe that all memorabilia is difficult to deal with. This is simply not true. We have boxes and boxes and boxes, and we're like, oh, I have to save this for last. It's so hard to go through memorabilia. Memorabilia is difficult. Memorabilia, tackling your memorabilia can be an easy and joyful process. We have a negativity bias with our brains, right? We always think the worst of everything. Scenarios, memories, whatever. The negative stuff rises to the top because that's how our brains were optimized to keep us safe. In this case, it actually is true that a lot of memorabilia is easy to process and a lot of it is joyful or can be joyful. But we put off the biggest problem that I see with my clients is a tendency to put off getting started on boxes that you think probably have memorabilia in them because you're assuming it's going to be difficult. The best thing that you can do is open that box, see what is in there. Maybe it's going to be difficult. Maybe it's going to be joyful. Maybe it's a whole bunch of stuff that is not even what you thought it was. And you can just go through it really quickly and get through with the box. You don't know how the process is going to go until you open that box. So do not hesitate to start tackling memorabilia because you're worried about how hard it's going to be. Open the box, see how difficult it is, and then decide this is too hard for right now. Or actually, this isn't that bad. I think I can do this. You're in the driver's seat. You decide how hard it is. You decide if you want to do it, but open the box because you just don't know what is in there until you actually open that box. So that's my another really big tip with memorabilia. Open the box and see. Another thing is that a lot of times when we have grief and memorabilia attached to grief, we need time to process the grief before we can go through the stuff. And over time, your ability to handle the things is going to change. If you have some memorabilia that is attached to grief, remember that this time that you open the box is going to be different from last time because time has passed. And time is the number one piece of the equation when it comes to grief and stuff. The more time that passes, it's not that it gets easier, but the emotions change. And so just, you know, get into the habit of opening up those boxes once every 9 months, once every 12 months, whatever it is. Put it on your calendar and just be curious. How is it going to be today? Because time has passed and things change with time. Not that grief ever goes away, but it mutates. And that can be just something to be curious about with your memorabilia. Okay, a couple more thoughts that I have down here. In general, with memorabilia collections, especially our own stuff, it helps to process it chronologically. So to organize it chronologically and process it chronologically, starting with your birth on, put your kind of history, your life into different eras, ERAS. I know I say that a little funny. It's my strong New York accent. Put your life into eras and process your memorabilia based on that era of your life. So my eras are like birth through high school. In my mind, that's like one big clump. High school is its own thing, college is its own thing. And then like my early, when I got married and had babies. And then as the kids have gotten older, I have a new era now. It's the era of having older children. So those are, you have different eras in life. An era could be any length of time, but they're like the put your life chronologically into eras and look at your memorabilia based on that timeline. Otherwise, it can be helpful to go by person. So if you have other people's sentimental memorabilia type things, put them together by person, categorize by person, and tackle it that way. Okay, two more thoughts here. I want to make sure I say this in the right way. We today We have more stuff than we've ever had before, right? Obviously. That's why we're all in this predicament together. We own more things than we ever have before. We have more files than we've ever had before. We have more photos. We have more videos. We have more memories stored than we've ever had ever 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 before. Ever. I mean by a huge degree. I am of the belief that we were never meant to document so much stuff and to keep so much documentation of our lives or the lives of our children. It's just there's a lot of value in a memory as opposed to a highly documented memory. So just think about that moving forward. We hang on to things because we're afraid we're going to forget. But in that process, we're focusing on the fear of forgetting instead of just the joy of having a memory. We don't need documentation to remember an event. And a lot of times we remember things a certain way for a certain reason, whatever that is. And the documentation might not exactly match up with the memory. And then you kind of start to challenge how you're remembering things, or it's just a different lens for our memories. And I don't actually believe that that different lens is necessary. I'm going to share a story about my grandmother. She had Alzheimer's when she was at the end of her life, and she had lived what I think we would all agree was a very difficult life. There was a lot of tragedy in her life. Um, it just was a difficult life that she had had. Of course, there were moments of joy, but on the whole, if you looked at her life objectively, you would say it wasn't the easiest life. When I watched my grandmother's Alzheimer's taking over her memory, she really remembered a lot of positive things, or she didn't remember how difficult certain events had been. Her memory had dulled a little bit, or well, a lot over time. And it actually, I think, was very peaceful and comforting to her. I believe that we remember events in a certain way because it's advantageous to us, evolutionarily advantageous to us in that moment. The idea that we are documenting so much stuff and we are having a death grip on all of these things. What are we losing from that? What are we losing from that? What if you didn't have all of that documentation? What have you actually lost? You haven't lost the memories. And maybe we need to just trust our brains a little bit more to remember things in a way that helps us in the moment. So that's just food for thought. I also question how much of especially when we have digital files, how much of these photos and videos are we going back and watching? I mean, it's such an insane amount. It overwhelms us. It takes away from our ability to live in the moment right now. How often do you go back and watch all of those school recitals, all of those recorder recitals? I can say for sure I would never go back and watch my kids' recorder recitals. They were horrible. It's something I just have a nice, sweet memory that they did that, but oh my gosh, I would never sit down and actually watch that. So just be realistic with yourself when you're looking at these massive digital files, which could all be considered memorabilia because they are literally the documentation of your life. How much of it is truly necessary? And another kind of food for thought is what happens to your digital thumbprint when you leave this earth. Does anybody I question this a lot myself. Are my kids going to want my 400,000 photos on my Google Drive? Maybe. I mean, obviously they are going to have no choice. Maybe they'll never look at it, but really what happens to your digital life once you leave this world? Food for thought, food for thought. Last point about memorabilia, and then we'll wrap up because we're getting past that 20-minute mark here. We cannot live in the present if we are so heavily tethered to the past. If we have so much that every time we look around our house and we're feeling so overwhelmed because this was handed down to me, this was a gift, this is emotional, this is that. How much is that taking away from your ability to live in the moment right now? It is great to have memorabilia. I mean, we all do, right? Like, but we have to be careful that we're not past that tipping point of having so much from our past and so much that is anchoring us to a different day and time, because the last thing you want to do is take away from your ability to have experiences and make memories right now. So don't let your memories be a thing that is holding you back. Clutter, anything that stands in the way of forward momentum. Don't let your memorabilia become so big that it is just clutter. It is just holding you back from living right now. Give yourself the space to make experiences and fully live your life in the moment. Don't let the memorabilia become a huge piece of clutter. Remember, our Clutter Boss motto this year is take action. Go take action. Go take action. That's what we're doing. It is our word of the year at Clutter Boss. Action, action, action. Go take action. I'm glad that this discussion helped and resonated. If you liked this and it was meaningful to you and helpful to you, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this, share this. That is the best way that you can support our small business. It means so much to us, and it keeps this content coming and keeps it free. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Sending you guys love and strength. You got this. See you soon.